There is a country where morning begins, not with an alarm clock, but with the scent of strong coffee, dripping slowly through a metal filter onto condensed milk, a ritual so sacred that millions of people pull up tiny plastic stools on street corners every single day, watching the city wake up around them, and absolutely nobody rushes them. That country is Vietnam. A slender strip of land curled along the eastern edge of Southeast Asia, like a dragon resting on the sea. Vietnam is home to nearly 100 million people, and yet so much of what the outside world thinks it knows about this nation is frozen in a single decade of war that ended half a century ago. The reality is something else entirely. From the mist-covered mountains of Sapa in the north, where terraced rice fields climb toward the clouds like staircases carved for giants, to the floating markets of the Mekong Delta in the south, where entire communities rise with the sun and trade everything. From pineapples to live ducks directly from boat to boat, Vietnam today is a country of breathtaking contradictions. It is ancient and brand new, chaotic and deeply peaceful, fiercely independent and endlessly welcoming. In Hanoi's Old Quarter, a 1,000-year-old labyrinth of 36 streets, each one named after the trade once practiced there, you can still find craftsmen shaping silver and stitching silk exactly as their ancestors did 8 centuries ago. While just around the corner, a teenager on a smartphone orders a ride through an app and pays with a QR code before you can blink. It is this collision of worlds that makes living in Vietnam unlike living anywhere else on Earth. So if you have ever wondered what daily life actually looks like here, not the tourist version, not the wartime footage, but the real, breathing, evolving Vietnam, then stay with us. We are about to take you on a journey from the highlands to the coast, from ancient temples to glass skyscrapers, from street stalls where a meal costs less than $1 to boardrooms driving one of Asia's fastest-growing economies. And if you believe that the most interesting stories are the ones that remind us how much we all share, even on opposite sides of the planet, then hit that subscribe button now. There is a whole world to explore, and we are just getting started. To understand how people live in Vietnam, you first have to understand the land itself. Geography here is not just a backdrop, it is the co-author of daily existence. Vietnam stretches over 1,600 kilometers from north to south, yet in some places it narrows to barely 50 kilometers wide. This unusual shape, often compared to a bamboo pole, carrying 2 baskets of rice at either end, means that the country contains an astonishing range of landscapes within a single border. In the far north, around the town of Sapa, the Hoang Lien Son mountain range, the fabled Tonkinese Alps, rises sharply from the earth. The peaks are so high and the valleys so deep that clouds fill the gaps between them like rivers of cotton, and the temperature can drop to near freezing, even as the rest of the country sweats through tropical heat. Ethnic minority communities, including the Hmong and the Dao, have farmed these impossible slopes for generations, carving terraces into mountainsides so steep that walking on them feels like standing on a ladder leaned against the sky. Travel east, and you reach Ha Long Bay, a seascape so surreal it barely seems real. Nearly 2,000 limestone islands jut out of emerald green water, their peaks worn into strange shapes by millions of years of wind and rain, their bases hollowed into caves that once sheltered fishermen during storms and wars. Move south to the central highlands around Dalat, and the air cools again among pine forests and coffee plantations, a landscape so unexpected in tropical Southeast Asia that the French colonizers built it into their mountain retreat. Further south still, the Mekong Delta spreads out like a vast green palm, a maze of rivers, canals, and floating homes where the line between land and water blurs completely. This is a country where you can stand on a frozen mountain at dawn and dip your feet in a warm tropical sea by sunset. Few places on Earth compress so much variety into a single nation. If there is one thread that ties daily life together across all 98 million people in Vietnam, from the narrow alleyways of Ho Chi Minh City to the quiet lanes of Hue, it is the rhythm of the morning. Dawn in Vietnam does not tiptoe in. It arrives with purpose. Before the sun has fully cleared the horizon, the streets are already alive. In Hanoi, elderly men and women gather in parks around Hoan Kiem Lake, moving through the slow, deliberate motions of Tai Chi as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Nearby, others jog, stretch, or simply sit on benches and watch the city stir, a daily ritual as predictable as the sunrise itself. The air at this hour carries a particular coolness, a brief mercy before the tropical heat begins its daily ascent, and for a short window, the city belongs to its oldest residents. But the real engine of the Vietnamese morning is the cafe culture. It is impossible to overstate how central coffee is to life here. Vietnam is the second largest coffee producer in the world, and the drink they make from it, thick, dark, intensely strong, often cut with sweet condensed milk, is not just a beverage, but a social institution. In Hanoi's backstreets, you can order cha phay trung, egg coffee, a velvety concoction where whipped egg yolk and sugar float on top of Robusta like a cloud suspended over dark earth. Walk down any street in District 1 of Ho Chi Minh City at 7 in the morning, and you will see countless people perched on those tiny plastic stools, sipping from small glasses, reading the news on their phones, chatting with friends, or simply watching the endless river of motorbikes flow past. Nobody is in a hurry. The coffee must finish, the conversation must be had, and only then does the working day truly begin. Motorbikes are the other great constant. Vietnam has over 70 million of them, and they are not just transportation. They are mobile extensions of the home. A single motorbike might carry a family of 4, a week's worth of groceries, a ladder, several potted plants, and a small dog, all at once and without any visible concern. The traffic looks like chaos to an outsider, but to those who live here, it is a choreographed dance, one where everyone understands the unspoken rules, where horns are not aggressive but communicative, a gentle toot that says, "I am here, I see you, we are moving together." By midday, the rhythm shifts. The streets that buzzed with delivery scooters and construction workers now slow under the weight of the heat. Lunch is not an afterthought in Vietnam, it is a full pause. Office workers spill onto sidewalks, crouching over steaming bowls of pho or plates of com tam, broken rice topped with grilled pork. The country does not eat at desks. Meals are sacred, even when eaten on a plastic stool inches from a passing motorbike. As evening descends, the streets transform again. The vendors who sell breakfast from dawn until mid-morning are replaced by night market stalls, their bare bulbs strung across alleyways, their grills sending columns of smoke and the scent of lemongrass and caramelized garlic into the humid air. Families walk together along the banks of the Perfume River. Young couples share sugarcane juice on the steps of the Saigon Opera House, and the parks fill once more, this time with teenagers playing badminton, older women dancing in synchronized groups to Vietnamese pop music, and children chasing each other through the dark until their parents call them home. This is the daily pulse of Vietnam. It breathes in and out with the sun, moving from quiet reverence to roaring energy and back to quiet again. A rhythm that has held for centuries and shows no sign of breaking. Walk through the lantern-lit streets of Hội An, the ancient trading port on Vietnam's central coast, and you begin to understand something essential about how Vietnamese families live. Here, the old merchant houses, some of them standing for over 200 years, are built narrow and deep, with courtyards open to the sky in the middle, because in a tropical climate, light and airflow matter as much as walls. This architectural wisdom runs through Vietnamese homes everywhere, from the tube houses of Hanoi's Old Quarter, squeezed impossibly thin between neighbors yet stretching far back from the street like railway carriages, to the stilt houses of the Mekong Delta that rise above the floodwaters on wooden legs. The home in Vietnam is rarely just a place to sleep. It is the container of the family, and the family is the most sacred unit in Vietnamese society. 3 generations under one roof is not unusual. It is the ideal. Grandparents, parents, and children share daily life in a way that many Western households have long since lost, and this proximity is not seen as a burden, but as a source of strength. The ancestral altar, a feature in nearly every Vietnamese home, regardless of wealth, sits in the most honored position, often the center of the main room, where incense is burned regularly and offerings of fruit, flowers, and sometimes the favorite foods of departed relatives are placed with reverence. This practice is not morbid. It is a living connection between past and present, a quiet acknowledgement that the family extends beyond the visible world. In the rural villages outside Hội An, where rice paddies stretch to the horizon and water buffalo wade slowly through muddy fields, the rhythm of family life follows the agricultural calendar. Planting season, harvest season, the monsoon rains, these are not just weather events, but social events, moments when entire extended families and often entire communities work together because survival here has always depended on cooperation. If you want to understand the soul of Vietnam, come to Hue. The former imperial capital, perched on the banks of the Perfume River, is not just a city of ancient tombs and crumbling citadels. It is the spiritual home of Vietnamese cuisine, and the food here tells the story of the nation more honestly than any history book. Hue was once the seat of the Nguyen emperors, and the royal court demanded dishes of extraordinary refinement. A single meal for the emperor might involve 50 separate courses, each one small enough to fit on a spoon, each one a miniature work of art. That obsession with balance between flavors, textures, colors, temperatures, filtered down from the palace kitchens into the street food stalls, and today it defines Vietnamese food at every level. The principle is simple and profound. Every dish must balance the 5 fundamental tastes: sweet and sour, salty and bitter, and the heat of chili, all present, none dominating. This is why a bowl of pho, the noodle soup that has become Vietnam's most famous export, is never just one thing. The broth, simmered for hours with beef bones, star anise, cinnamon, and ginger is deep and savory, but it is lifted by fresh herbs, brightened by a squeeze of lime, and sharpened by a slice of chili, all of it added at the table by the person eating it, because in Vietnam, the final act of cooking belongs to the diner. In the markets of Hue, you can eat bun bo hue, a spicy beef noodle, soup bolder, and more assertive than its northern cousin, its broth stained red with annatto oil and packed with lemongrass. Further south in the Mekong Delta, the food becomes sweeter, more tropical, reflecting the abundance of coconut palms and fruit orchards. Each region speaks its own dialect of flavor, and together they form a culinary language that is endlessly nuanced and deeply democratic. The same care that once went into an emperor's dinner now goes into a bowl of noodles that costs less than $1 on a street corner. Da Nang, a coastal city in central Vietnam, tells the story of the country's economic transformation better than almost anywhere else. 30 years ago, this was a sleepy provincial town, still recovering from war. Today, its skyline gleams with new hotels and office towers, its beaches are lined with resorts, and it has become one of the most important manufacturing and technology hubs in Southeast Asia. This transformation is not unique to Da Nang. It is the story of modern Vietnam. For much of the 20th century, Vietnam was one of the poorest countries in the world, isolated by war and then by economic embargo. The reforms known as Doi Moi, launched in 1986, began to open the country to market forces, and the results have been extraordinary. In less than 40 years, Vietnam has moved from a rice-exporting economy barely able to feed itself to a manufacturing powerhouse that produces everything from smartphones to sneakers for the world's biggest brands. The poverty rate has collapsed from over 70% to under 5%. Walk through the industrial zones on the outskirts of Da Nang, and you will see factories where tens of thousands of workers, most of them young women who have migrated from rural villages, assemble electronics and textiles destined for every continent. The wages are modest by Western standards, but they have lifted millions of families out of subsistence farming and into the middle class. In the city centers, a new generation of Vietnamese entrepreneurs is building tech startups, running digital marketing agencies, and opening design studios. The coffee shop has become the unofficial office of this creative class, yet the economy remains deeply uneven. In the mountain villages of the Central Highlands, where ethnic minority communities grow coffee and pepper far from the coastal boomtowns, life has changed far more slowly. Vietnam's economic miracle is real, but it is also incomplete, a story still being written. In the weeks leading up to Tet, the Vietnamese Lunar New Year, the entire country seems to hold its breath. This is the most important event on the Vietnamese calendar, a celebration that combines the significance of Christmas, New Year's Eve, and Thanksgiving into a single period of intense family activity. In Hanoi, the streets around the Temple of Literature become a living gallery of calligraphy, where elderly scholars in traditional dress write auspicious characters in black ink on red paper, each stroke a prayer for health, prosperity, or academic success in the year ahead. Tet is when the social fabric of Vietnam becomes most visible. It is a time of returning. Millions of people travel back to their ancestral villages, packing trains, buses, and motorbikes with gifts and luggage, reversing the migration that brought them to the cities for work. The highways become rivers of movement. In homes across the country, families clean every corner of the house, pay off debts, settle arguments, and prepare elaborate feasts, because the way you enter the new year sets the tone for everything that follows. But social life in Vietnam is not defined by festivals alone. The concept of community, làng, the village, runs deep in the national psyche. Even in the chaos of Ho Chi Minh City, where the population has swelled past 10 million, neighborhoods operate like villages within the metropolis. People know their neighbors. They share food. They gather in the evenings on street corners, sitting on those ubiquitous plastic stools, drinking iced tea, and talking about nothing and everything. Public space in Vietnam is not empty space. It is social space, and it fills up every evening with the sound of conversation. This is a society that has never lost the habit of being together, of finding companionship, not through screens, but through the simple act of sitting outside and letting the world come to you. But life in Vietnam is not all morning coffee and lantern-lit evenings. To live here is also to live with challenges, some ancient, some brand new. And in the Mekong Delta, these challenges are written directly onto the landscape. The Delta is one of the most fertile regions on Earth, a vast green basket that feeds not just Vietnam, but much of the world with its rice, fruit, and seafood. It is also one of the most vulnerable places on the planet to climate change. Rising sea levels push salt water further inland each year, poisoning the rice paddies that families have farmed for centuries. In provinces like Ben Tre and Ca Mau, farmers who once grew 3 rice harvests a year now struggle to manage one. The water that gave them life is slowly taking it back. Some families are abandoning their land, joining the migration to cities where factory work offers a fragile alternative. Flooding is a fact of life across much of Vietnam. In the central provinces around Hue and Da Nang, the annual typhoon season brings rains so heavy that entire neighborhoods can disappear underwater overnight. People adapt, they build their homes on higher foundations, they keep boats tied to their front doors, they learn to read the sky, but adaptation has its limits and the storms are getting stronger. Pollution is another shadow. Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City regularly rank among the most polluted cities in the world. The rivers that have sustained Vietnamese civilization for thousands of years are choked with industrial waste and plastic. The motorbikes that give the cities their kinetic energy also fill the air with a haze that children breathe every day. And there are quieter challenges too. The pressure to succeed, to support aging parents while raising children in a hyper-competitive education system, the tension between traditional expectations of filial piety and the individualism of a globalized generation. These are the internal weather systems that shape Vietnamese lives as surely as the monsoons shape the land. Stand on the rooftop of the Bitexco Financial Tower in Ho Chi Minh City, and you see 2 Vietnams occupying the same space. The glass towers of District 1 rise like crystal cliffs above streets, where women in conical hats still sell fresh coconuts from bicycles. A young professional in a tailored suit steps out of a Japanese brand sedan and walks past a man carrying 2 baskets of live chickens on a bamboo pole across his shoulders. Neither of them looks twice at the other. This is not a clash. It is a coexistence that has become so normal that most Vietnamese no longer notice it. But the tension between modern and traditional life is real, and it plays out most intensely within families. In the countryside around Ninh Bình, where limestone casts rise dramatically from rice fields and the landscape looks like a painting from an ancient scroll, the older generation still lives much as their grandparents did, rising with the sun, working the land, maintaining the ancestral altar, measuring time by the seasons rather than the clock. Their children, many of whom have moved to Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City for work, inhabit a different world entirely. They use dating apps and watch Netflix and dream of careers in technology or design. When they return home for Tet, they bring these two worlds into the same room, and the friction is palpable. Should a young woman marry the man her parents choose or follow her own heart? Should a son stay in the village to care for his aging parents or pursue a career that will take him to another continent? These are not abstract questions. They are conversations happening in millions of Vietnamese homes right now. Meanwhile, the country walks its own tightrope. Vietnam remains officially communist, but its economy is increasingly capitalist. Internet access is widespread, but the state maintains tight control over what can be said online. Vietnam in the 21st century is an experiment. Can a nation modernize economically while preserving its cultural identity? The answer is being written every single day. Which brings us to the final question, the one that hangs in the air after you have seen both the beauty and the difficulty of life here. Why do people stay? Drive north from Hanoi into the mountains of Hà Giang, and you begin to find an answer. This is one of the most spectacular landscapes in Asia, a region of towering limestone peaks, deep river gorges, and winding roads that cling to cliffsides like ribbons. It is also one of the poorest parts of Vietnam, where ethnic minority communities live in conditions that are unimaginably difficult by urban standards. And yet people stay. They stay because the land is not just property, it is identity. The terraced fields their ancestors carved into these mountainsides 5 centuries ago are not something you can pack into a suitcase. They stay because the communal life of the village, the web of obligations and affections that binds neighbor to neighbor and generation to generation, is not easily replicated in a foreign city where nobody knows your name. They stay because the food tastes right here, because the festivals mean something here, because the graves of their ancestors are here, and increasingly, a new generation is staying or returning for more complicated reasons. Vietnam today is a country of possibility. For young entrepreneurs, artists, and professionals, it offers something that many developed economies no longer do: the chance to build something new. The energy of a nation that is still becoming, still discovering what it can be, is intoxicating. To live in Vietnam is to live inside a story that is not yet finished. It is to wake up every morning in a place where the past is never far away, but the future is being written right now. On street corners where coffee drips slowly, on motorbikes weaving through impossible traffic, on ancestral altars where incense still burns, and in the eyes of nearly 100 million people who have survived war, poverty, and isolation, and who greet each dawn with a resilience that feels, in the end, like the truest definition of home. If this journey through Vietnam has moved you, if it has shown you something about this extraordinary country that you did not know before, then please subscribe to our channel. We travel to places that most people never see, and we tell the stories that most documentaries leave out. Hit that subscribe button and let us keep exploring together. Explore more, worry less.